Hi,
Hi, Momo. How are you?
I'm okay. How are you? So long. I'm sorry, I think it's my ID acting up because it's private. It doesn't let me get on lives.
Acha,
So
okay.
I
Yeah,
have to
yeah,
join from
yeah,
HRI page for that
yeah.
matter.
And welcome and thanks for joining on time.
Thank you so
So,
much for having me. I'm so excited. We have
yeah,
already seven
sure.
people viewing,
Yes,
and I'm like,
yes. Yeah, I know. Can recognize so many names. We're waving. And the most interesting thing is when we know each other in person so well, joining a live
it just
is
feels
so
like another conversation. Oh, hi
exactly.
Pragya.
Yeah. So, and the other thing is even better, like, it's quite surprising about this private thing because, it wouldn't have struck you also that,
It's happened before as well with other
uh,
organizations. It says that it's sending me a request allowing me to
mm,
sort of accept in the request, but
mm.
then the moment I do it, it does not show up for me.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
I don't know what happens every time that happens. I think it's better to go
Yeah,
with a
right. Do
private
this thing. Yeah, but
communication
it's good
system.
that we have IHRA as a backup, and which is why I tagged IHRA also. And the interesting
Yeah,
thing is, I
yeah.
was telling someone in a group that I am one of the co-founders in IHRI. So somebody will think like I might have the login and all that, but I have enough logins to handle. So yeah, all of us can barely manage one account and anytime.
I swear, it's been a very chaotic journey with the IHRI page as well. I will
True.
open up on on
Yeah,
on
yeah,
today's talk as well there.
yeah.
Yes.
So to everybody, thanks. Yeah, like Pragya said, Momo is also one of my favorite humans. Actually, they are the favorite human of many people around me, including my immediate biofam. Yeah.
Oh,
So, like sometimes,
I'm
yeah,
privileged.
sometimes it's like, they want weekly updates about Momo. So, like, yeah, so that's what it is. Yeah, and yeah, so welcome everybody. Yes, this is going to be a conversation of between two people who are more than friends, right? Uh, our
We've
life,
known each other from such a long time as well.
yeah, has been interwoven for I think as long as we've known each other. So yeah, so it's not just about this is so many intersectionality intervene. But yeah, that is the fun and see, I think for many of us here people, especially, hey, hello people. Uh, Surprisingly, I'm wearing this T-shirt in an unplanned manner, but once I wore it, I decided I will keep it at least because most of the lives I've been doing either with a blue or a black, it's become like a signature color. And by the
True,
way,
true.
that's one of the little secrets. Momo loves blue, black, or
So yes, I'm wearing like a
yes.
combination of colors
Oh
as
my
well.
gosh. Momo, my God. I'm like, people, yeah, because I can take these liberties with Momo, I'll first, before saying hi, I will examine their t-shirts and be like, okay, it's not black for a change types. Yeah. So, yeah, but more importantly, this is not just about t-shirts and friendship and everything else, but also about, uh, what is intersex? Who are intersex persons, right? And, why they are so important, okay, and how also we don't want to claim anything like unique first, that kind of
Mhm.
thing, but I think we might very well say, and much of that credit goes to Momo, who will quietly and but relentlessly do so much background work on taking uh, intersex people's issues collectively, to whichever space they can. Yeah, believe me, right from the parks of Bangalore to, maybe the
To the
pride
UN.
marches.
To
Yeah,
the
the pride
UN. We were
marches.
able to represent UN.
Yeah, I know. And and believe me, many times, it's not easy because people will think that somebody is trying to gain a limelight, or somebody seems to be doing it alone. I mean, not alone, deliberately, they're kind of, it's not that. Because sometimes what happens is, and I'm sure some of the friends who are joining this, especially if you've been part of the IHRI or the intersex movement, Indian intersex movement's journey, when you kind of, start doing things and you can't help not being public about it, right? Because what's the point then, And then what happens is it becomes sort of convenient for others to keep on calling you. Like you'll want to tell people, please, there are others who are open, yeah, and who have their own narratives, who have their own challenges, who have also their own needs, right? So let us do this together. But yeah, but so, and then many times people should realize that being in the, trying to do something relentlessly is not only sometimes tiring, it's a lot of responsibility. Yeah, yeah.
Mhm.
Here it is not about authority, it's not about individualism. When you are taking the collective together, okay, uh, you have to unknowingly shoulder so much that honestly you need very strong, and I think multiple shoulders, no, and then this might seem like,
Absolutely correct.
yeah. And this might seem like, I'm just using wordplay or something, not like that. And yeah, so, and otherwise, IHRI would not be what it is. Okay, so we're going to go in a non-linear way, but I will, hand it over to Momo to introduce IHRA. It's Intersex Human Rights India is just the expansion of it, but the beginnings, how it has grown, and of course, Momo, please at every time, weave in whatever is possible as an individual narrative, because the collective is about individuals, right? Okay.
Yes,
And
indeed.
yeah, so over to you. Okay.
Thank you so much for that, Ritash. It's like very important aspect. Sometimes that we forget when we are doing collective work is that collective win is a community win, but a collective failure is not considered as a community failure. It's considered as an individual failure, right? So I think what is very important in our work also is the decolonizing aspect that we have to sort of work around structures. And I, by any aspect, do not claim to be a voice of a community. I cannot, I can never. And I can only be a voice for myself because I have unique lived experiences of myself, and others will have their unique lived experiences, and they know better the pains and the successes that they had to go through for those achievements to sort of reflect. So, simple history of IHRI is that if I don't know if you remember this, but I was actually invited by a friend
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
to the opening to the this thing, and I was very surprised because that was a phase of my life where I was exploring the label itself, and I knew for that matter that those days I was not very comfortable with the label itself, and I would rather go with the variation that I had as a label for myself. And then when I realized like how much comfort the label kind of brings to persons and people, I started going with the label more openly to 2019 onwards. So, quick history lesson is that couple of us, I think not many of us, when I say couple of us, intersex allies, researchers, friends, community members, supposed allies as well, joined together in the month of April 9th and 10th in this very nice hotel in near, what was that? What is that road?
Actually, it is Infantry Road and officially renamed like
Near Raj Bhavan.
my Mahavijan. Ha! No, actually, it is opposite the police commissioner's office, Bangalore.
Yes, yes,
Yes,
opposite
Raj
to
Bhavan
the
is
police commissioner's office as well.
yeah,
Yes,
very far off. But I think somehow, I think in a way, it was also a safe space. And yeah, bear with me if I butt in because it's not just the excitement of recalling. I think all of us did took all those steps together, right?
yeah.
Yeah. So please continue. Yeah, yeah.
Every time I pass through that hotel, I am just reminded of the memory. It's such a beautiful memory to live through because I'm like, hey, I've been here. This place I've been here. So most of us got together. We decided how do we proceed further, and a name was coined by somebody who was not from India, by our beloved and dear colleague slash friend slash mentor Isan Regmi from Nepal. Isan said that if you're, working on intersex human rights, why don't you coin the term intersex human rights India? Although IHRI has been a pan-Indian space, I think it has been okay for us to extend invitation to people apart from India as well. We have not restricted or gatekept people from attending our space. South Asians are very much welcome in our space. The only thing I feel that they might kind of miss out is on the relatability of the experience itself. Because even though we are South Asians, we have some commonality attached to us. We still have different issues that bind us together, and different in-person issues as well. So I think that that's the defining factor there. But having said that, it is a beautiful moment to see the group first be one group, and then we realized that we had to make a split to the group and make a separate allies group so that everybody, irrespective of their background, political affiliation, and financial or racial status, come together and sort of have that space to sort of explore. So from 2019, I think, Ritash, we have grown a lot in terms of how we did things. First, the Kolkata meet, and then really amplifying some of the voices, talking to the local communities there, understanding their perspectives. To 2022, when we started actually pushing ourselves, thanks to you, thanks to everybody else who's been involved. Being that guiding light to push someone into spaces is very difficult. And as you mentioned that we need visibility, but the kind of visibility that we also need has to be, it comes at a cost, unfortunately, and a cost which not a lot of people in our spaces are comfortable giving. And unfortunately or fortunately, someone has to take that up for themselves and sort of lead into that workspace. And the question is, if not today, then when? If not I, then who? And if not today, tomorrow, then how else do you expect people around us to actually talk about the issues that need, visibility of our kind? And I think COVID taught us a very valuable lesson, I think, in terms of how isolation feels like. The intersex movement is largely isolated in India. It's still a movement that is still being understood, very marginally understood, and unfortunately, still very much invisible from spaces. Every time I see LGBTQ, I'm like, why not QI plus? Right? Like the important question, why are we just thinking that Q is inclusive of all the identities? Even if it is, it's still, that the alphabet not being there is not representation enough for it. And it hurts to not see representation. And we, as much as we try to sort of give awareness, etc., etc., I still feel like talking about it still falls short, because even after talking about that, people still are reluctant to include us in conversations. They're reluctant to see that young person or mixed age group people is leading a collective. They have a lot of issue with that as well, right? So they have issues with non-intersex people leading an intersex collective, which until a very long time I was like, all right, I understand that narrative, but now I've come to a realization that who are we and how can we say somebody is not intersex? Because do we have those mechanisms and tools to sit and evaluate everybody and say that whether they're intersex or not? Then what is the movement all about? Is it about really stepping into the idea of bioessentialism, which is really understanding that? So how can we say somebody is intersex or not? And largely movements outside India are very much based on this, like get a diagnosis and then we consider you as an intersex person. But I think IHRA in that aspect really stands for self autonomy and determination, because we have never asked anybody, you bring a karyotyping report and we'll see, or we have never done that. And I'm very glad we have not done that, because as much as there are fears of people saying that, oh, randomly anybody will come and identify intersex. So what? And bigger question to ask is that why would someone do that? What additional benefit are they getting? Are they getting paid to be in IHRI's group? Is government providing them extra quotas, to be intersex? Are they getting treated well in the medical fraternity? That's the dream come true. And I think those are fears that stem from gatekeeping as well, like to gatekeep a certain community because they don't look like us, don't talk like us, and most importantly, they don't belong to the caste and class structure that we have. In a nutshell, actually, also adding to that aspect. And I think further of this, I think the way then I've really missed you at the last event, the one that me, Pragya did, and I'm really sorry for the miscommunication that happened. But we really missed a lot of old people who had come before. The conversations were lovely. The thing that stood out for me the most was how we spoke about bodies. And why I like doing that segment a lot is that I don't know if you recall in Vimochana when we started the conversation on bodies. It is such a rare conversation for the women sitting there in Vimochana to think about their bodies. It's not an everyday conversation that working class people think about their bodies or understand that the needs of their bodies or how their bodies kind of look like. So these were some, I think, very important defining conversations for us to sort of, build on. And I think going forward and in future as well, it's a conversation that we should never stop having. Is how do we see our bodies around ourselves and how do they exist? And the beautiful answer to that actually is that they don't exist in a binary. They are very they are very fluid, they are very not binary appearing, and they have different characteristics that define them. But yet, the world is so hell bent on the binary aspect that they categorize and club being male and female as one, under different labels. But like everybody has a monolith identity. It's so strange that every time I ask people in queering art literatures and bodies, what do you see unique about your body that others do not have? And they say that, oh, our hair pattern looks like this, or my color of my eye is like this, or something on my hands is so unique it's only to me, others do not have it. Now I don't know, how do you kind of define that in a binary sense? How do you say that that is same for everybody? So I have a very unique thing on my hand. I don't know if I've showed it to you or not, but basically these lines, I have four of them. So, and everybody else has three of them. But me and my mother, we share four lines like this, and I ask people around, I'm like, how do you club that as a binary? How do you say that that is a binary? Like that is so strange and different about us. So I think an important conversation that we are not kind of having and missing out on is that how do we not categorize ourselves in binaries? It's okay to maybe say that categorizing yourself into a label is okay, as long as That label brings you a lot of comfort. It gives you a sense of security and belonging. But what we don't want to do is to categorize ourselves into boxes of very rigid notions. uh, Even labels can suffocate. And I remember writing a piece with you, co-authoring a piece with you on how language evolves over time, right? So, right, yeah, and I love the fact that that's how labels are also there. They're meant to actually give you a lot of freedom and liberation. They're not meant to suffocate you. And if you feel that they're suffocating you, then it is time to either let go of that label, ditch that label, or just go labelless. I like the fact that even being not label is a label. So, so we are not really actually getting away from the concept of having a label for ourselves. But I think it requires more and more conversations around the idea of how we, see ourselves. Coming to an important question and a good question is that who is an intersex person? In my eyes, the entire world around me is intersex.
Mm,
Very controversial opinion. I don't believe that our chromosomes or our genitalia or our existence itself is a binary. At any degree, we have some variation or the other. So we are all intersex. I much people might hate me for this saying this out loud, but I think the fear comes from the word itself
yeah.
also, because when they hear the word intersex, they think in between the sexes, which might translate to the now no longer used, and I can use this word because I've reclaimed it for myself, is hermaphrodite. They get confused with the word hermaphrodite and start asking very invasive questions, like, do you have both? Like, both what? Mental health and stability? No.
Yeah.
I don't. House and stable forms of income? No. So I think having both as a concept is a very fictional thing, because as a biologist, I can tell you that it's not us humans. It's actually what do you say, clownfishes that can possess. Oh yes, hi Akshay, a biologist is speaking here. It is clownfishes that can change their sex based on water temperatures. It is fruit flies, depending on the kind of birth that they're taking, that they can change their sex as well. So those animals or those forms of life can be termed as hermaphrodite because they have that capacity. But in human beings, it is actually not very possible to possess functional, and I need to use the word functional here because that's what doctors or the medical fraternity would actually use to describe intersex people, is that people have functional genitalia, but we don't. We cannot have both functional genitalia at the same time. And I think, again, stemming from the idea that we are okay using the word intersex for fruit flies, for clownfish, for other forms of, uh, you know, yeah, same here. Other forms of life, but we are not okay for using the word intersex for human beings. And as sad as of a reality it is, that I think something that remarkably stands out for me is the very recent United Nations Human Rights Council's proposal on intersex rights. Now, that is a very good watch. I would urge everybody to actually go through that video once, and that video actually tells you how much resistance that the world has for the word intersex itself. Last year, when I was in Delhi, and Dr. Satyendra introduced me to somebody, he was like, "Come, come, you need to speak to this person." And I was very happy. I went along with her, and she was, I think, the head of pediatrics committee in India or something, or chief of pediatrics in India. And he's like, meet her and talk to her and tell her why it is important to talk about intersex identities and not keep conflicting the word intersex and DSDs together.
Mm,
And this woman wanted to ban the word intersex, and she actually wanted to file a petition in Delhi High Court banning the word intersex from textbooks, medical practice, etc. And I was very amazed because when I spoke to her, I felt like I lost a lot of brain cells. In the end, me and a friend were just like, we don't think we can talk to her anymore because it doesn't look like beyond her cloak of ignorance and arrogance, both going very much hand in hand with each other. In her case, she was willing to sort of listen to another perspective. She was very, rigid in that notion, and that's how I think a lot of the world around us is also. Unfortunately, I think the safety and security that having your own people kind of provide you with is, it's also like a bubble. You start living in a bubble because you also assume that people around you is thinking in the same lines as you, and then you meet all sorts of people, social workers, researchers, and academicians, and doctors, and etc. And then you realize that I've been very much in delusion because the world is not looking at it the same way that I am looking at it, and it is a very sad reality to sort of come in face with. And I think this is also a reason why a lot of intersex people sort of shy away from working for intersex causes, is there is a lot of disappointment, and there is not a lot of hoo-ha. Yeah, I did something very remarkable for the movement every day or every single time. There is a lot of disappointment, and there's a lot of labor that goes into work which is not appreciated or rewarded for. I think also a reason why people don't want to work for the movement is that we live in a system where we constantly seek validation or rewarding or some sort of appreciation that has to come out from something that we do. It may be very big. It may be, for example, when I took IHRI to the UN, I was to UNESCO, and I spoke about IHRI there. It felt like a very proudful moment. I felt like it was a community win. But I also expected UNESCO to sort of lay down the red carpet and be like, "Woohoo, you've been doing a tremendous work," and etc. etc. But when I did not get that, it kind of hurt. And this hurt did not come for the fact that that we have not done enough. It's just for the fact that the world around us has advanced a lot in terms of doing, and we are still at the very scratch point of it. And to expect any kind of appreciation or recognition is valid. It's okay. I think we have roughed a lot of seas to come to that moment, but to know that the world around us does not look at our movement in such a way that it's not a major win for them. So the reaction at UNESCO actually left me quite surprised because I was like, do you realize, like, I was speaking to the and I told him that, I was like, hey, do you realize that in India, this is a topic that is not well spoken about? And he was like, I do understand the context where you're coming from, but you also need to see how other countries have, done so much in such little time. But the sad reality for us that exists is that we still have to legitimize our movement with other movements and keep telling that, we are not somebody who's going to take your attention away, or I don't take big names here, but I'm actually referring to big names with their own movements here who have a lot of resistance to younger people or a mixed age group people leading a movement because they fear that the spotlight over their movements will be taken away. And
Yeah.
I feel that it is very bogus to think in those lines because I feel like our movements can exist parallelly or
Yeah.
in intersection with each other or as twins or as siblings.
Yeah.
I love how people love to collate intersex and trans people as one label, but
Yeah.
hate the idea that intersex people also have many intersex people are also trans people, or many trans people are also intersex people, in the same idea. And to build a movement out of it, they don't like that fact. They don't like the word intersex is being used here. And that just tells us how much, tolerance that we have within our spaces for intersex people. And the sad reality is that hiring companies, queer hiring companies, when they go ahead and they say that we are hiring LGBTQIA plus people, I'm like, do you know what an I stands for? Do you know
Right.
what are the needs of
Yeah.
an I person? Do you
Yeah.
know, in terms of healthcare insurance and policy making, what are some of the health needs of these people? Is it covered by our health policy, or do they have a waiting period? Do you understand that if an intersex person wants to go for hormone therapy or gender, sex therapy, reassignment surgery, or anything, any surgeries, and that does not change their identity to being a trans person unless they say so. So I don't think we have enough organizations equipped with this knowledge. And when you ask them too many questions, they backfire you with this. This happened with me, Ritash. One of the companies that I was giving a talk with,
Yes,
this
I remember
person
that
got
too in Hindi, right? And it was made it doubly, yeah. But
Hindi as well, and also another time when I was talking about that this was a pharmaceutical company. I was like, you're not hiring enough intersex candidates to put
right,
out the
right,
fact
right.
that
Okay, yeah.
you're hiring LGBTQI plus
Mm,
candidates, right? So I was like, if you don't understand our health
mm,
needs, then
mm.
who are you hiring? What are you hiring? And whom are you trying to say
Very
that
true.
you're hiring these many people?
Yeah. Yeah.
So very interestingly, the response that I got from the lead HR, who
Mm,
was now very annoyed by listening to this, because he was clearly hoping I would,
mm.
sort of bootleg how and appreciate how their DEI, the most beautiful thing to exist in corporates, the DEI would sort of, I would appreciate that they have done so much for the community, etc. When I said that, this, they got very annoyed. They actually, he backfired to me. He said, then why should we have labels at all?
Yeah.
Why should we, why should we keep a criteria of hiring people based on their gender, etc.? So I was like, that is a good question. Why don't you ask your superiors that? Why are you having a criteria to
Yeah.
begin with? To, if you want to hire on basis of gender, etc., then why are you asking me that question? You shouldn't be asking me that question. You should be asking that question to your superiors who have put you in that place. And I saw the discomfort, and the discomfort was it was a very satisfying discomfort. It is unfortunately not a win to see that discomfort, but it is a good acknowledgement to understand that that has come into play. And I think this should extend further from anybody of us, any of us who is listening to this, watching to this, should be asking organizations who claim to hire LGBTQI plus people, do they really understand their health needs? Do they know what specific challenges those queer people have? And extending to things like disabilities, invisible disabilities, neurodivergence, and all other things. So much they want to capitalize on us, but the least minimum they cannot, bare minimum they cannot, sort of work around.
So, yeah. So, Momo, that's fantastic, summary, so many things, and it's really stirring so many of my memories of not just IHRI and intersex, but broadly, the queer movement in India. I know I'm just one person. I cannot and must not speak for everybody or on behalf of the movement. But as but I think I have a right to give my views and just because I am gender fluid, I'm asexual, within the queer. Plus, also I've been writing and speaking extensively, and also I become certified counselor for the last couple of years. So, but a few things stand out for me, and and of course, by chance, I've worked in corporates for 14 years. So, yeah, and that is also why Trunk we do these lives because we want first person narratives, and we try as a dive, you know, but somewhere the force is taken away by certain specific a person or geography, and that
Mm-hmm.
actually over time can harm. People may not like us saying this, but we have to say it, because what is something if it doesn't grow, if it doesn't evolve? Just laws 10 years since the Nalsa judgment. Okay, I remember exactly. I don't know how these elections and me go together. I was actually taking people on a tour, trans people's uh, addas, if we can call Bangalore. There was a visiting delegation from India. Then they were looking at Nalsa judgment. But the fact is, okay, and that unfortunately must admit, we have the
Pritash, your voice is cutting down a
okay.
lot for me.
Sorry,
Can you?
sorry. Yeah, because I keep moving my phone. Yeah. So yeah. So all I was saying was, despite 10 years of the Nalsa judgment, we as people who have, seen multiple sides of, various movements within movements, yeah, can say that actually the law has not given us much. Okay. Because as they say, first of all, much of it is in legalese. Okay. The other thing is, the letter of the law is very different from the spirit of the law. The lawmakers deliberately do not want to hear us, or what they hear us they will not put in those judgments. I mean, can you believe
Hmm.
it? The watered down version of the TG Act, it was opened up for comments before actually, I think, getting the presidential assent, or before, during the just after the first lockdown ended. Who in their right minds, will do such a thing? I think right here, does not mean right wing at all, but I think the right wingers did this. Okay. And other thing is, if you do it online, how many people in this country, despite them having, say, mobile phones, are able to access the internet and give feedback, usually only in the official languages of the Union Government of India, which is Hindi and English. Okay. So so I think, and what people do not see is the Nalsa judgment is not just historic and remarkable, but it was also like a watershed movement, because it actually opened up so many things what we people, queer people, who by chance have been there ever since humankind has been there on this earth. That is what both of us co-wrote in the Anthropocene paper last year. Okay. Believe me, and is what we've been saying. Self-determination of gender identity, of our sexuality, it is enshrined in the Nalsa judgment. Okay, which people miss, right, or deliberately ignore. Okay, so that is so important. Then cut forward to 5 years, sorry, 4.5 years later, the reading down of 377. Okay, unfortunately IPC has been replaced by the Bharatiya Nyay or Anyay Samhita. I don't know, it is for people to interpret it the way they want to. Okay. But the thing is that over there also, and I'm saying this also as an asexual person, I never realized that till then actually I also am criminalized, because anything I do and say my sexuality is first of all questioned, because asexuality is often interpreted as an absence of sexuality. And the other thing is, how can you be like this? It's not abnormal, unnatural. And the other thing is that because for them anything against the order of nature is crime, criminal. No. So
Yeah,
it's the
yeah.
same way. I remember very well our friend Ishan. We keep quoting him because one more thing, as you said, unfortunately, I think India is way behind. As we say, our so-called smaller subcontinental neighbors are way ahead of us in so many ways, in especially the queer rights movement. Much as in the public eye things might seem different. Okay, so Ishan said, intersex brings it back to sex characteristics. Asexuality brings it back to sexuality, as in the connection between the physical, the emotional, and everything. Yeah. So I think that is what I think, what? It is something as simple and as basic as that. Okay. Yeah, and people here between us, we know about 4 5 languages. So if you want, we can briefly summarize this in Kannada or in Hindi or in Tamil, Telugu, whichever. But ये सिर्फ हम बोल रहे हैं कि जो कानून बोला था टू नलसा जजमेंट के मुताबिक 2014 में, या आईपीसी सेक्शन 377 जब रीड डाउन हो गया, या वो सिर्फ यही बताया कि आप जो अबनॉर्मल बोल रहे हैं, आप जो अननेचुरल बोल रहे हैं, वो इतना ही, it is as natural as heterosexuality. It is as natural as having different chromosomal patterns, or most importantly, it's as natural or as basic as हम अपने लैंगिकता, लिंगत्व को क्या हम महसूस करते हैं, वो ही है बस. ओके. एंड लेकिन अगर आप तब तक इंतजार कर रहे थे कि कानून को ये बोलना है, उसके बाद भी आप कानून को क्या, what are we giving? We keep saying nalsa judgment, nalsa
Yeah.
judgment, but are we in the sense the ones who want to you know sideline us, or alienate us? Are you looking at the law, like as if, you know and this also reminds me of one of our intersex friends who used to keep saying, right? Remember, I think it was at that NLS conference, no? She banged the table and said, and she was saying, I put this question to everybody who questions our sexuality, our sex characteristics. We don't come and say that to you. We don't say, do you prove you're a man, prove you're a woman. Okay, why do you have to do it to trans people? Why do you have to do it to intersex people? Yeah. And also and seriously, the so-called people who want to certify us don't know us, don't understand us, and are unwilling to understand us from our
Yeah.
viewpoint. Okay. And the ones who want to abnormalize us, please realize that you may seem abnormal, except that we don't come and tell you that you're abnormal, because we are happy with our normalcy, no? And we
Yeah.
say, okay, your abnormalcy is your this thing, and we don't. But that is this thing. And as you also said, I remember we had a session, which again, where I think, I'm not sure Ganga Bhavani or Daniela are here, but we had this session in this Global Tech Summit. First time it happened in Bangalore, out and equal. We said, I is for intersex, no inclusion without intersex. Okay, we titled it that way. And none of us thought so much about it, because for us it was the whole thing about I, and somebody was like, wow, that is such a nice one-liner or something. We're like, it's not about one-liners, it's about people. Okay. And the other thing which you said about between the sexes, I remember one of the interesting things that we did during the lockdown was, apart from having online meetings wherever possible and all that, a few of us got together, and lots of credit goes to, people like, again, from Tamil Nadu, Ramki, Rangal Shiva, Devati Akka, the very famed author, poet, and actor, the trans woman, very humbly. Uh, we and a few others were also identifying as intersex, but were not open yet. We were discussing on multiple just phone calls that what should be the Tamil equivalence. Okay, because somehow, like from Tamil Nadu, people were, and one of them said, between the sexes, or like middle sex. That time we were like trying to convince them, and they were like, yeah, you're right, But now in hindsight, I was just chatting about this a couple of months ago with another very supportive researcher friend. We were like, who are we to tell that person don't do it, or this is the interpretation which may be, but
Yeah.
you feel your body is like that, or you feel that about. The person got convinced
Correct.
because they themselves were unsure. So if they got convinced, it was me. I hope it was because of what they felt, and not because so many of us were saying this. also a process, like for instance, I say I'm also gender fluid. Some people want to put me under the trans umbrella. I'm not saying I'm against
Hmm.
it or for it, right? But what you want to say about yourself, and like you said, no, we can be label free, right?
Yeah.
And as you say, the label can give you comfort, it can give you community, but it should not also constrain you, right?
Yeah.
So that is
True.
also the thing. And Momo, at this point, I want to make a slight departure. Okay.
Sure.
Yeah. So now, like you said, we did not gatekeep, and IHRI took its own shape, and we've not registered it, and there are people in and out. But also, see, because India is such a vast country, too much diversity that we in one lifetime we cannot understand its diversity. Okay,
Mm-hmm.
but now you have also now much more traversed not just the subcontinent but East Asia and all that. Okay, a very naive, a very basic question: how do intersex people see themselves? It is I mean, I'm sure that nobody can see themselves only as intersex. No, there are so many other
Mm-hmm.
things, right? Is there any market difference between, I mean, visible difference, rather not
Yeah.
visible that way, any difference between where, say, people in East Asia, where we think perhaps the movement has gone forward, okay, much more, versus how we people in India, I won't say South Asia because Nepal has been way ahead of us. Okay, to some
Absolutely.
extent,
It's such a
yeah,
shame that.
yeah, and to some extent, I think Bangladesh and Pakistan, but East Asia, and I don't want to go, towards the northern hemisphere because those people are in their own thing. But if East Asia, if there's something more we can learn from how they, see
Yeah.
themselves, yeah.
Yes. So I think from my experiences traveling Southeast Asia, something
Mm-hmm.
that remarkably stands out is that the fact that the intersex identity itself is not like a divisible, like it's not a dividing identity. It's like a part of their identity, and they're not going to let go of it no matter what they're going to identify themselves with. Something that stood out for me as a beautiful reminder is that this is what it is. This is a part of our identity, this thing. Ditching a label, not using a label, or, just going with a label, it's not going to change the realities that we are living in. And the sooner that we accept to that reality, the better and easier it is for us to navigate life. Something that I found very unique about this aspect was that they're not too fixated about the idea of how oh, you bought hearts to yourself.
Okay, yeah. Sometimes I keep doing that. Sorry, I didn't mean to distract. Yeah, please continue.
No, that's all right. So something that really stood out for me in that was that their identity was a very crucial building point, or a crucial point of their identity itself, and it really did tell them how they engaged and experienced the world around them. But they were also not too focused on it. Like by that
Mm,
I mean that change will happen one day. It's okay. We don't have to be so negative about it. We don't have to, like, be very how do I say, this is like, and they would say things like, oh, this is an ongoing narrative. Not everybody of us have to be involved into this. There are people who know what they're doing. To say that there are people who know what they are doing is comes from a lot of place of privilege.
mm,
It comes from a lot of structural supporting infrastructure and
mm,
understanding and laws to back them up. To know
mm,
that there are people in the vicinity and law and other panels to make things right for them, and
mm,
not just with specifically with Thailand, for example, even with the Philippines
mm,
and Vietnam and all
mm,
these nations, the the eight Southeast Asian countries, the ASEAN caucus, as they like to call themselves,
Mm.
they're very, they experience what I feel like, there is a lot of heterogeneity attached to them, very different in the ways that they work, etc. But there is still so much individualism attached to each one of them. It's like a NATO but for rights. You know, attack on one of us is like an attack on all of us. That kind of solidarity they exhibit with each other, and it is very rare to see that solidarity.
Super. Yeah.
A drawback of that solidarity is that they are in odds with South Asians, because they expect South Asians also
Yeah.
to have that solidarity, and for which they might end up gatekeeping South Asians from Southeast Asian spaces, because they are like, don't you have that kind of solidarity or understanding? And I'm like, no, we don't. We might not step up for each other. We might be if there is any political agenda or any economic benefit for us. But apart from that, we don't have. I mean, like, even when I say Southeast Asia, even countries like Brunei are included in the caucus
Mm.
with some of the most stringent human rights violations it has, and one of the
Yeah.
most terrible countries for queer folks to exist in Southeast Asia. But even
Mm.
then, they stand
Mm.
up for these countries, and that is a solidarity I wish that we had as well, and we considered pain and suffering of all of us equally in that aspect as well. So I think we are so focused on fighting battles inwards in our countries, that we are
Right.
not able to hold space for others' experiences, their lived ideas, or their hopes also. We are not okay listening to what others want
Mm.
to, bring out as change in maybe, something to do with intersex recognition or autonomy or determination, even if it is not exactly on what we believe in, but it is that
Mm.
intersex person, ideology and thought.
Mm.
But we are divided by these differences that come through. And I
Mm.
think a part where I feel like we should be also re-evaluating and understanding why this is happening
Mm.
is also an idea where we are not decolonizing our practices. We are stuck in a
Right.
very colonial imperialistic mindset of the Western spaces, where we think that only Western labels will bring comfort to us, or
Mm.
make us feel belong.
True.
Whereas regional language, and labels have existed for thousands of years, and people also of those identities have existed for thousands of years. But
Mm.
because of how we sort of how do I say conform to the ideas and constructs of the Western colonial mindsets, we are not able to sort of keep those differences aside and embrace our own, and
True.
which is sort of a back, which is kind of making an uncomfortable truth of, why a lot of movements are feeling resistant towards integrating with us as well, is that they are like, you are very very label specific. You don't understand these lived experiences. You don't consider sex work as real work, or you don't consider our eating habits as acceptable just because they go against your moral notions
True.
and ideas.
True.
So I think this is something that we still have to kind of fight. These are our battles that still need a lot
Mm.
of fighting, and
Yeah.
it's a shame that when in spaces when we try to say about we need visibility, and then they are, and the platforms, then they give you visibility, then you are like left finding trolls and convincing people that whatever you're doing is not going against the idea of whatever we all stand for together, is that there is no
Right.
liberation for us without the liberation for all of us. But
Yeah.
to keep explaining that is very tiring, I feel.
Right.
And it's a
Right. Yeah. 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 Sorry. Sorry.
that's
Yeah. Yeah.
no, that's all
Yeah,
from
yeah.
my end.
No,
I think
it's
I think
fantastic
you're
that
all,
you
yeah.
said this, because you know what see, finally, it's tragic that yes, we are not in any utopia that all marginalized people should unite and all that stuff. It can't, it won't happen. Identity matters, individual identity, intersectionality matters, is inevitable. Not only is inevitable, it is crucial. Having said that, people feeling that, one is going to take away the other is, you know,
Hmm.
is actually somewhere sort of very not just reductionist. I think it comes because of insecurity and what all we've experienced, and the humongous, what do you say, almost non-erasable colonial impact. And somewhere we keep unknowingly measuring ourselves despite doing our best to avoid it. Okay. And for instance, this whole language itself is so important, right? We are not
Yeah.
saying that labels are important or they should be defining. Of course not. We relearn, redefine, unlearn, whatever. But, for instance, take us only, no? And I'm sure, Momo, you won't mind if I say us. We have studied in English all our lives. It's still our
Yeah.
primary mode of communication, expression, work, everything. But somewhere we still want our, whatever we call our local languages. For instance, as long time Bangaloreans, perhaps we have so many local languages, right? So
Yeah.
somewhere we feel much closer, or somewhere, we feel less constrained if there is something which, is in our so-called in our language, because it somehow connects you a little more emotionally. It is much more perhaps truer to our sense. But this is not a
Mm-hmm.
judgment on somebody who's most comfortable only in English. That is their
True.
choice, their convenience, whichever. Okay. So which is why, I mean, incidentally, we and a few others in IHRI are, we've had a short project. I mean, hopefully it's not just a project, but it's an initiative which we've been trying for a long time. And we got some support. We are going to start releasing some multilingual audio narratives, and of course, links to
Mm-hmm.
all these Insta lives and all which we've been doing. Because, and here, when we are saying narratives, it is often could be life stories in a nutshell. And that is why we have also deliberately named this as Intersex 101 and more and beyond, because Intersex is not
Mm-hmm.
just about the biological definitions. It is not just about body parts, right?
Yeah.
It is, yeah, it is not just about chromosomal patterns. Okay, I'm taking the, guts to having the guts to say this in front of a very qualified and a very, skilled molecular biologist. Me, my knowledge of biology is just about high school. Okay, and especially human biology. But that is what it is, no? Similar to like any kind of sexuality, it is not necessarily linked to your genitalia, or what is, whether your hormone is firing, your libido is less or more, or something like that. It is, which is why, we say, na, why do we say, why is there
Yeah.
always this nature nurture debate? Why is there always emotional versus physical versus mental?
Mm.
Because you cannot separate this, na? Like,
True.
earlier bioessentialism or whatever Darwinian theories and all that would say, oh, genetically you can only inherit physical characteristics, at most health issues and all. But no, later we are finding that even behavior sometimes, can be,
Yeah.
because they say, oh my gosh, I know your parent or your grandparent from this young age and you are just like them. And sometimes that
Mm.
parent or grandparent may not be there into your adulthood. Because sometimes they
Yeah.
say, na, that this is not just about observed or acquired behavior. It could
And
be somewhere also, just like you have intergenerational trauma, you can have intergenerational behavior patterns, right?
that is
And
very true. I wholeheartedly agree with
yeah,
that. Yeah.
yeah. So, which is why, is it so difficult? I remember still, in with the few supportive physicians and healthcare people, we have said, and they've said, oh my gosh, my 35 years or 20 years of endocrinology or community health training, I have to go back. And then they had the humility to admit this was there in our textbook. Somehow we thought it is not possible, right? But now we are
Yeah.
seeing
True.
you people in front of us, And I used to be very scared because I used to say, see, my qualification is engineering and I don't know anything, and all of you are HODs of various specialized. They're like, no, no, no,
Yeah.
no. But you're speaking reality. We are only going by textbook and, theory or whatever. We are going only by. This is not to undercut or undermine evidence based learning or research, or no, not like that. What we are saying is evidence is also of this kind. Evidence is
Yeah.
also, and this also takes us back to why slowly but surely emotional quotient, emotional intelligence also became so important, right?
Yeah.
And Momo, at this stage, I also want to take, I know we're slightly over time, but if you don't mind another 10-15 minutes. See,
Sure.
you've also done work or by invitation, luckily. I remember we were very excited when you got invited by the Qatar, government and
Government
all that
and all.
stuff. Yeah. But I think there were also certain, what do you say, you were slightly, and let me say, maybe edgy, you were a little worried because you are also a practicing Muslim, right? And we know that much as on one side we are handling Islamophobia, okay, which I know is completely unacceptable. Any kind of phobia, any kind of discrimination, abuse is violence
Mm,
and is unacceptable. You were also wondering what are these people up to, right? And would you like to share a little bit about, how things happened? Because that was like a first,
sure.
right? Almost. Yeah. And very significant, I think. Yeah.
I, I think the Qatar delegation is not much often known to a lot of people, of course, but
Yeah.
something that is very remarkable about that project that we had to kind of go through was actually wording terminologies, and we wanted to word in such a way that we are still able to retain queer identities without actually
Mm,
cloaking them away, but we failed at that because they also had a team who could
mm,
sit through and sort of analyze the words that we wrote. Talking about how I think Islamophobia and other forms of intersectional hate, and I would like to use the word intersectional hate, is because sometimes hate is also a label. It's an identity in a way that it stems from different movements altogether as well.
yeah.
Different queer movements can hate us for certain reasons, and what all of this kind of creates, it kind of creates a cultural and a spiritual battleground. Like you're trying to balance the act with someone, but you're falling short of doing or pleasing another party of another lived experience. So it becomes a big battleground. And to sort of manage that becomes very difficult. So when I was actually told about the Qatar delegation and that this is what we are doing, etc., etc., would you like to sort of, put in your expertise in this? So I was like, we have to be extremely careful about the language we use and the perspectives we add. Something that we felt that was, very important in how we define what we define is how we use the word intersex itself. Because when we wrote the initial draft and we wrote intersex, it was actually corrected to us. It was given as DSDs in the end. It was given as
Mm,
either they said they were okay with using diversity of sexual variation and other etc. Even were okay to not use disorders of sex development, but they were not okay with the word intersex because they said that when they translate the word into Arabic, it gives a very similar connection or label to what transgender could mean,
mm,
and that could confuse their population, of
mm,
what are they really promoting here. And so we were like, all right, whatever something that historically your population has used to describe DSDs or intersex people, we will use that.
mm,
And very interestingly, one of the members of one of the panelists, she was this very old uh, tribal woman because in Qatar they value and honor their tribal leaders a lot, and they
Yeah.
involve them in a lot of conversations. So this
Mm.
panel had about 20 to 30 people. It was a huge committee. From our side, it was just 6 people of us, and but from their side, a lot of people. So this old woman, tribal, she must be in her 70s now, and now I don't know how many, like now she must be in her early 71, 72. So she was, told about this, and she told her the word actually. She said, "Oh, so when she was like, oh, when some children are born within our tribe, you cannot look at their genitalia and decide what gender it is. And for such this thing, children, we call them mukhattanat, or basically the same word that we use for ambiguous genitalia.
Mm.
So the word exists. It's not that there is no Arabic or regional language word for it, but in popular context, the word is also used to describe trans people.
Mm.
So, or people who have undergone gender sex reassignment surgeries. So when she said that word, a lot of murmurs in the room began because
Mm.
people are like, we can't use this word,
Mm.
we should use something more scientific. And I'm like, there is nothing more scientific than ambiguous genitalia, you know. And here is a problem where I kind of saw that, their hesitation to adopt a word which is already there in their language versus the impact this has to the wider range of community around us.
Mm.
So somebody who was not willing to take this or adopt this word up,
Mm.
for them, this translates as phobia. You're
Mm.
fearful of that word. That's why you're not adapting it,
Mm.
that word. For
Mm.
them, it's easy to sit there and say that, oh, these people, they believe into a certain, rigidity and religion, etc., which is why they're not going to accept intersex people,
Mm.
and which translates into Islamophobia then, not initially itself, but
Mm.
later structural and other forms. You start hating the people of that religion, or the people that come from that religion, because you assume that they are not going to listen or understand.
Yeah.
Whereas it is very important to understand that people of both identities will exist now.
Right.
Where do they go? Like, where do they kind of find of that
Mm.
common ground to say that,
Yeah.
both of you fix your differences aside and let's work on the real and concerning issue here.
Yeah.
And I think both of which, the hesitation and the fear of the queer community versus the hesitation
Mm.
of the Muslim community kind of makes it as a cloak of multiple invisibilities. Because
Right.
where do you find that sense of belonging then?
Mm.
You, because when you enter the
Mm.
queer space, you're actually asked to choose. If you're not of a certain caste, creed, and this thing,
Mm.
and if you are a person of faith, you are ridiculed. So
Mm.
it's important to know that wrong practices should be condemned and called out for. No
Mm.
sort of what do you say?
Mm.
No excuses for that.
Mm.
If something, if any practices of a certain religion is very wrong, oppressive, and is very patriarchal in
Mm.
nature, it is our duty to call that out and say that no, but this is actually harming people,
Mm.
and instead of saying that that's their cultural practice, etc.
Yeah.
So I think that's important to sort of work on. It's a very, very sticky rope to walk on as well,
Yeah.
because if we were to do this in a way
Mm.
uh, with other stakeholders involved, I
Mm.
don't think they would sit for this talk, Ritash. They would be like, we
Yeah.
wouldn't want to listen
Sure.
to somebody tell us about what being intersex is,
Mm.
or vice versa as well,
Mm.
or somebody saying that, but you don't know what you're talking about,
Yeah.
or
Yeah.
other people of lived other experiences, educational backgrounds, and lived experiences, not okay to listen to them. So I
Yeah.
think this cloak of multiple invisibility that we have to fight with is a very difficult cloak to sort of hold on to, because
True.
there is a breaking point to it. After a
Sure.
while, you do have to
Sure.
choose. You have to make a,
Sure.
yeah,
Yeah.
a point of choosing.
Yeah.
Those who continue to hold on to the different ropes that are out there or strings that are
Mm.
out there. We're outcasted by the society, not
Yeah,
involved in mainstream
of course
conversations.
not.
You
Yeah.
know,
Right.
yeah, I
And
think I hope that answers what
yeah,
you wanted to
surely.
sort
Yeah,
of.
yeah. Because I think, again, like we said, no, many times nowadays, I think we're having shorter conversations and so much else to handle. But I remember bits and pieces now, especially about that elderly person, but we never had this nuance thing. And I'm so glad that you have elucidated it. So much. Actually, you know what? I would not see it as a failure. And I'm not saying this because we are friends and, much more or for the sake of just encouraging, but I think it's a big learning, and it's a big insight into somebody's, not just, I'm not trying to rate them intellectually or something, to someone who I think it comes from a lot of self-respect for themselves, like they are
Mm-hmm.
valuing everything, but at the same time respecting you as a human being. They are not reducing you to either
Yeah.
intersex person, a young person, or some other country, but similar whatever kind of faith practices. Not like that, right? They're seeing you as a whole,
Mm-hmm.
which is why they were invited. And I think, and the fact that you're articulated it so much, it's a big learning. I think it's something you should treasure, and wonderful that it's easier said than done. I know for you sitting there, because I still remember reading that document and trying to give feedback, because I think you quickly
Yeah.
asked, and I think you sought feedback from others also. People again who are listening here, sometimes Momo and I have to do things in a jiffy, right? And here we are not trying to do anything on behalf of somebody, but sometimes it's also the mutual comfort, trust, and the availability that we have. Sometimes we tend to, and we are also very grateful to IHRI folks and all who've given us that latitude to say, and this is not just us both, so many other people in IHRI use the
Yeah.
IHRI, what do you say, the label, the everything, and then say, I'm a co founder and this is what it is. Like, for instance, last year we had, and we are writing like Maya's story again. And Maya is also one person who has really gone out of the way amidst all her challenges. She identified as intertrans, she struggled, so many social this thing, and every surgery of hers has only increased her physical and physiological health issues.
Mm-hmm.
Dalit, she comes, she's a migrant, and so many things. And so many others, we mentioned Daniela, Ganga Bhavani, and Anand, who's also logged in. And there are many people in IHRA, and this is not just about IHRA. Let me say, intersex people who identify themselves proudly as an
Yes.
intersex person from India have, and that is where we respect each other, right? And we trust each other, like people who
Mm-hmm.
came to the first meeting, to the closed door, and they said, I thought I'm the only one like this in this world. And for me, just being here gives that sense of not just community, but much more validation to my existence.
Yeah.
Still, they've been through so many ups and downs. But I remember Kavin last year, a Dalit intersex person from a semi-rural part of Coimbatore, their sibling has even disabilities. Within just a few hours, suddenly they decided to go for Coimbatore Pride and then, wave the flag. And, for us, because that is why I think, actually, for
Yeah.
me and for many of us, when we see purple and yellow, we can only think of intersex and nothing else. But it's also because for us, it's like kind of an emotional attachment we have to that.
Mm-hmm.
We've tried our best to, build it without, it being a limitation, right? Or
Yeah.
being only identity, right? Or the only symbol,
Correct.
right? And to the extent that people used to kid me, like, what is this? I mean, why are you suddenly talking only intersex? I mean, maybe you have something in your chromosome in you. And I'm like, no, I haven't left anybody or something like that. And I need not be the only flag bearer for anything and everyone. Yeah, because for instance, we have people like Bonnie Paul who is struggling on a day-to-day basis with their health. They're doing their best to resume work. Bonnie Paul literally sometime at one time, had a like fall from grace with for no fault of theirs, right?
Mm-hmm.
Being intersex is not just like some of us have born with, I was literally born with a holy heart, and then it's left, literally scarred me for life. But that doesn't mean that's the only thing, or, that can give you certain challenges, but we still live because of that, despite that, right? So, same thing,
True. Yeah.
being intersex or having disabilities, many times should not stop them. So please, people, if you cannot accept somebody, please do not, stop or become roadblocks for us. That's all we are saying. And yeah. And Momo, I know we are well over time. Anything else you want to add? Or, again, people, if you have questions, you can DM us and Intersex Human Rights India's Instagram page, because we don't have the wherewithal to be able to also be active on Twitter, and we hope
Yeah.
to have a site and all that stuff through Wikipedia. But we are willing to, most importantly, provide any kind of support community to people who are even questioning their intersex identity, if at all, if they think is that. And like you said, I have been by one of the few gynecologists who has, tried to understand intersex people. She,
Mm-hmm.
Dr. Shariba, she's not here, but then I must give credit to her. She said DSD is the more generic term and the better term, because not everybody can be intersex, needs to be
Yes.
intersex, may be intersex, may not be. So I think that when you're talking about what the Qatar people said, it just brought me back to that. And
Yeah.
so many of such people who, the few physicians, here again, we are not taking it out on any healthcare providers, but we are just
Mm-hmm.
saying that please do not start up. Yes, if it takes a lot of time to understand, and sometimes because of your profession or your training, you are constrained to understand it only from a medical viewpoint, from an evidence based, or a, definition,
Mm-hmm.
a physical something tangible. But at least do not say, uh, that it's a disorder, it's a defect, and that's the only way we understand and all that. That somehow comes to me not from just being disrespectful and dehumanizing. I think somewhere it's your insecurity or your unwillingness to, be expansive in your thought.
Yeah.
Yeah, and this is
I
not,
think
yeah, this is not being judgmental, but I think we are just putting facts out there.
I, I also believe that sincerely, there's a lot of power in taking in how people want to deliberately and
Mm,
intentionally address us, but by not responding sometimes to them,
mm.
we take up a lot of power from them, from
Yeah.
making them feel not heard.
Mm,
So I know that it's not going to stop for us, the trolling, the griefing, and the bullying. But I think the way we respond and the way we act on their, trolling and abusing actually now matters,
mm.
because the more we don't focus on it, actually gives us a lot of power to sort of move on and work on the causes than
Yeah.
actually be, stuck up with their thoughts and responses.
Yes. Yes. Yeah, yeah, yeah. And also that, two other small things which, I'm sure there's so many memories being stoked over here. What I remember, again, lot of credit and, gratitude to Revati Akka. She said first, like, how in the Hijra community, they say Ma Pet Ki Khusli, Ma Pet Ki Hitta and all that. And I remember also during our first meeting, Daniel also said this, that somewhere actually, you know what, people, and in fact, she was saying, I remember even in the Bible or somewhere she's read some references to this, that they're trying to hierarchize, okay?
Mhm.
And in that,
Mhm.
yeah, and in that, somebody is like, oh, I became trans, you already born trans, in a very, very
Mhm.
interpretation or misinterpretation of it. So, but the question,
Yeah.
if you want to keep it that way, then what's your problem in accepting? If you want to make it all about
Mhm.
creation and hierarchy and God or whatever else, right? Then why should you? When not everybody is feeling threatened, no, despite all
Yeah.
the violence and harassment and ostracization they face, many do not feel threatened at all. They are willing to accept, they're willing
True.
to learn, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. So that is the only, what do you say, request come demand that we have. Yeah. I mean, accept us. Yeah. Rainbow has supposedly seven colors is because of what we see the rainbow as. It might have so many
Hmm.
more, I can't help bring,
Colors.
yeah, I can't help bringing in a little bit of physics into this. That they say na, that is the visible part of the spectrum.
Hmm.
Right. So,
Absolutely. That true that.
yeah, yeah.
Siddharth, thanks so much for having me and everybody else who joined and to like hear us and the video that goes after and still gets a lot of attention.
Yeah, yeah,
I am so grateful. We were supposed to do this from such a long time, but
yeah.
yeah, given the conditions, I was not able to.
No, no, no. I mean, there's always a time for everything, as they say. So, thank you so much again. And sorry we went slightly over time, but always there's so
No
much.
worries on that.
I think it is
Thank you so
also
much for having me. We can do this as a series as well. I think I
actually, yeah,
could get
it's
on a
important. And hopefully, people, if any of you again wants to be part of such conversations, yeah, it's necessary to
absolutely. I think we should.
come, right? And conversations and collaborations are great. And yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you
Salam.
so much. Take care, everyone. Good night.
Yeah.
Bye, Vita.
Okay, bye. Take care. Okay. Chalo, bye.